Hey, this is John Kricfalusi. I'm in here with Bill Melendez, one of my heroes. Bill is a great animator, and he worked on what I think are the best cartoons ever made, the 1940s Bob Clampett cartoons. So he was there during the golden age of animation at the best studio ever with the best director ever. And he's got some of the funniest stories about working at Warner Brothers and Looney Tunes. Go, Bill.
Boy, good to be here. And these are good things to remember. Oh, boy. Just seeing that main title enough to set me off.
Wasn't this the cartoon that you first animated for Bob?
Yes.
Because I remember you showing me some scenes in here that you animated that were just really funny.
Well, I recognize, I can almost recognize, whenever I see animation, I recognize the animator in their action.
I think this first scene here is probably Bob McKimson, but you can tell me if I'm
It could be Bob, yeah.
It's Bugs Bunny sitting on the wing. And
Yes.
this is the best looking Bugs Bunny I've ever seen in any cartoon ever. Like, why were the characters, why do they look so good in Bob's cartoons?
Well, because I think he did the original, what do you call it?
Model sheet?
Model sheet.
Yeah, there he is.
And so
That's fantastic
it.
looking.
See, and also he was very precise about, drawing it. See, as soon as we took it over, we would loosen it up quite a bit. But he was a real good designer and good layout man and a good animator. Except this, he wasn't warm. See, there's an animator that is warm just because he's crazy. Scribner was a perfect example of a crazy animator. I always recognize his animation because it looks like him.
Gremlin, what a fairy tale. Little man, oh brother.
See, I love this animation. I think the contrast between your animation and Scribner's animation.
Oh, yeah.
I think Clampett used the animators better than the other directors because he cast the scenes. The subtle scenes he'd give to McKimson, the wilder ones he'd give to you and Scribner or Manny Gold.
Yeah. Well, see, Bob was a great director for that reason.
That's you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't this your animation?
Yeah. This stuff I recognize. Yeah. Yeah. This.
You got Bugs Bunny wiggling his nose there like a real rabbit.
Yeah. I got that. I don't know. I think it was from Scribner.
Hey, Matt.
I think McKimson was a great animator when he was with Clampett.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Bob told me a story once that when he directed McKimson, he didn't have to give him any drawings at all. He would just physically act out the scene like an actor. And McKimson had a photographic memory. He would memorize every motion that Bob did.
Yeah.
And he would animate Bugs Bunny doing that.
That's right.
Which I think is really cool because there's an animation style, and animators have their own styles, and they have different ways they move things that are not necessarily natural. They're cartoony. That's
right. Well, see, everybody animates himself, and you animate things as you see it in your mind and also physically as you do it. So all animation right away, represents the. See, this is Rod Scribner's animation.
This is here? Or the last scene?
Yeah, the last one, the one before that close-up.
This is back to McKimson.
Yeah, it's back to McKimson. Yeah, right.
This is great. When you freeze frame this, I'm going to tell all the animators to freeze frame Bugs Bunny's head here.
Yeah.
Every individual frame is just completely crazy.
Oh, yeah.
You can't believe how smoothly it moves in real time. Is this a Mortimer Snurd joke there? That's what Bugs Bunny looks like here.
Yeah, well, of course it is. See, now, Bugs Bunny especially, I think, was uniquely real when he was interpreting, an animator was doing it. Then it became very real. See, all this stuff is that old Rod Scribner would do, was wild things.
You see stuff in Clampett's cartoons that you don't see in anybody else's cartoons.
Well, that was true.
A lot more experimental, it seems.
Well, that was true, generally speaking, of Warner Brothers. That was what was fun to an animator to go to a place like Warner Brothers because you had a freedom, in animation that you had nowhere else. Everywhere else, they would just pin you down to do this or that. But at Warner Brothers, when you took over a scene or a problem, boy, it was yours.
Didn't you work at Disney's just before you came to Warner's?
Oh, yeah.
What was the difference?
Oh, the difference was at Disney, it was very cold and controlled and contrived. At Warner's, just the opposite. It was warm and crazy and free. It was quite a difference. And
What about the physical environment? You said the
well,
buildings were very different too.
of course, right away. See, when you went to Warner's, you were in the cartoon studio because he was a dump. When you were at Disney, you were like in heaven, like in a playground or in a hotel or something. And that was the difference. But that's what made Warner Brothers a great place for cartoonists, and especially for animators. This is old Rod Scribner at his best. See, all those anticipations. Yep. Zap.
The whole attitude of the Warner Brothers cartoons is almost making fun of cartoon conventions.
He was a cartoon of a cartoon at Warner Brothers. See, whereas at Disney, he was a very contrived cartoon of real life. But at Warner Brothers, he was all cartoon.
What was the difference between how you worked with directors at Disney and how you worked with them at Warner's?
At Warner Brothers, it was, it depends of your director. If you had a guy like McKimson, he practically give you every drawing he wanted you to use. That was wrong. Whereas you work with Clampett or somebody else, you have all the freedom. And that was more fun to work, of course, with a director like Clampett than to McKimson. God bless him. Although McKimson was a real decent guy, but he was very precise and very strict about this and that and what. Also, he was an animator, so he tried to animate it for you. See, and that was not acceptable.
So it wouldn't be very much fun to animate a
No,
scene.
no, of course not. You try to rebel against that right away. I'd surprise him with some of the things I would do.
So how would Clampett hand out a scene to you? Would he give you any information?
Very, very loose. He just said, "Well, this is the story, this is the joke. Now you do it," and that was good enough. See, that's the way it should be. Whereas when McKimson was directing, he would draw almost every pose for you of what he wanted, to see on the screen.
Yeah, in Clampett's cartoons, you can tell one animator from the next.
Oh yeah.
It's much harder in a McKimson or a Jones cartoon.
No, because McKimson had a tight-fisted control on what was being done. He wanted to do everything. He was a frustrated, animator all the way.
He was a great animator. I love his animation.
He was an animator, see.
In Clampett's cartoon.
And he just was not a good director for that reason. See, Clampett was a good director because he was not a good animator. But he was a good director. So there's subtle things to that, but it's understandable.
Do you know the origin of any of these gags?
I was just trying to remember it because that one especially, I always loved that joke.
Bob told me that joke came from something Rudy Eising used to always, when he was upset, he would go, E-I-O, E-I-O. So Clampett used that in the cartoon. He put a lot of gags from around the studio
That's right,
into the
sure,
into the
exactly.
cartoons.
He would know that. It's great to come from him.